Thoughts on the readings for January 18th, Genesis 31, Psalm 35, Matthew 20. In Genesis 31, Jacob feels the antagonism towards him from Laban's sons. So he determines to return home. Jacob plans to do so secretly so that he might protect his family from Laban's hostility. Jacob tells his wives that their father is a dishonest man, who has shown no love for his family. He is, says Jacob, a materialistic, covetous, selfish man. Without God's providence, Jacob claims, our situation would be hopeless. However, the God of Bethel has been faithful to his promise made to Jacob. So let us return to the land of our Lord. Rachel decided to steal her father's idols, which were likely ancient title deeds. Laban gathered his forces and pursued Jacob. 7 days are spent in hot pursuit of his family. The Almighty warns Laban to take care in his dealings with his son-in-law. Upon overtaking Jacob's troop, Laban speaks roughly to his son-in-law, but recounts the angelic warning and says he'll respect this. He expresses anger at the theft of his household gods. Jacob says if you find anyone in possession of these, they will be put to death. Rachel uses a ruse of claiming to have menstrual problems and is not able to get to her feet from off the camel's saddle. The gods were hidden beneath Rachel among the stuff that the camel was carrying. Laban's unsuccessful search was followed by a truce between Jacob and Laban. But not before Jacob vents his disappointment with everything that Laban had done in his harsh dealings with his son-in-law. We note Jacob's reluctance to use the same covenantal terms that Laban had invoked. It is a promise to not go past the altar of witness to harm one another. The term Mizpah, used by Jacob, means the watchtower and is of great significance throughout the Bible. Psalm 35 is penned by David to extol the greatness of his sovereign. Yahweh was his defense and his salvation. The psalmist was confident that his foes would be put to flight, like the chaff before the wind. They hated David without a cause and had laid a net to ensnare his feet. His enemies would be ensnared in their own net. The Almighty had risen in defense of the poor and needy. David was constantly subjected to their malicious gossip. David, in verse 17, invoked the Lord's loving kindness as his protection. He praises his helper in verse 18. In verses 19 to 21, David outlined the evil, deceitful, and corrupt behavior of his enemies. Yahweh had seen it and would repay the evil and vindicate the psalmist. The Lord's righteousness cannot allow this wrong to persist. When God arose in judgment, the upright rise up and respond with praise. The psalm was written by David in praise of the Almighty and to promote the same approach to worship among all those of devout heart. This psalm reminds us that God will intervene on behalf of his children because he says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." Matthew's 20th chapter starts with the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, naturally representing Israel. Isaiah 5, Psalm 80 verses 8 to 19. The parable is memorable because of its failure to represent sound financial practice. This device deliberately tells us that access to the kingdom is on the basis of grace and not merit. The underlying principle of the parable is that God does not reward us because of the works we have done. We are saved by the mercy and grace of the Almighty. His grace, i.e., his unmerited favor, is given to those who trust that he will give what he has promised, even if we haven't done a full day's work. Then follows in verses 17 to 19 Jesus telling the apostles for a third time of his approaching and imminent demise. Then Salome, the mother of James and John, 2 of the 3 foremost apostles, seeks for them the greatest positions of honor in Messiah's kingdom. All the lessons on humility leading to this point seem to have been forgotten. The section concludes with the healing of 2 blind men, who became followers of the Master, penned by Warwick Rosser and his team, produced by ChristaDelphinVideo.org.